it comes from the period of time where we were, that we came up in, because everything was creative and everyone was involved in the creative process, at least in our band, And so there was no way you could not participate in where it was going. My approach at the time was that whatever there was going to be that kind of is traditional, I wasn't going to do that. I was going to go somewhere else. I realized that I had a very limited vocabulary, that everything that I could play, like when we did, first, if we did the East Bay Grease record, everything I could play, I was doing on that record. I mean, I just went for it. I left no stone unturned. Everything I could play, that's what I was doing. And so I realized that we got a lot of recording ahead of us here, and if I want to have, really some fun doing this, it's not going to be fun if I have to repeat myself all the time. So I decided that I would try a different groove for each song, and discovered this was the Bump City record. I was like, well, that works pretty good. So then I got even more detail, and when we did the What Is Hip record, the one called Tower of Power that had What Is Hip on it, I decided that I would play a beat for each section of each song, and I would not use that anywhere else. It would become part of the composition. I was free. I could think of anything that I wanted to play on any of the songs, and as I listened back on it, some of it worked really well, and some of it didn't. But that was just when you're getting after it. I mean, not everything's gonna work. That we just kind of built our music on that sort of principle. That whatever was different, that's what we would accept. The thing about Tower that always is it's kind of like this isolated little world, and it really is still that way. It was that way then. It's all things Tower. It's difficult to operate outside of that, just because we work so much. There's very few windows of opportunity to go do something else. Mm-hmm. In the periods when I wasn't in the band, I was just out there doing stuff, looking for work like everyone else. I remember when I lived in Los Angeles, that was a real big awakening, living in Los Angeles, because, you want to be a studio. Everybody comes to LA wanting to be a studio musician or something. I'm calling contractors, and there was a really famous contractor. I won't tell you his name, but I called him, told him I was in town, was looking for work. And he said, and this was pretty much a quote, well, he said it like this: "We know who you are, but you're not happening until someone says you're happening." Okay, welcome to LA. Living in LA was kind of was difficult, because you couldn't be comfortable with a wide range of work unless it was in the studios or something prestigious or something that people would go, oh yeah, that's great. In the Bay Area, you do a wedding one day, the same guys are on a recording session the next day. You could have a lifestyle that was not centered around looking like you were doing something cool. When I was coming up, kind of what people did was they joined a band. You played with the same people for a long time. You built a relationship together. You played music together. You just did it together. Moving out of town, it was one of the best things that ever happened to me. Was getting out. I got back to the Bay Area, where I'm from, and reconnected with my reasons for playing music in the first place. I liked being in a band. I missed the experience that I had with Tower.